Hey, what's up bikers? Pierce with Electric Bike Report. And today we're reviewing one of the most popular Class 1 e-bikes on the market right now, built around a lightweight design and good looking aesthetics. It's the Propella motor from Bafeng. From my experience so far, this motor works really well and it feels decently powerful below me. However, we always like to take our test bikes to our test hill to really dictate how well these motors perform. Our test hill has an average grade of 12%, sometimes even getting up to as steep as 18%. This hill is about 1/3 of a mile, and essentially it really dictates whether or not this motor can turn this bike into a hill climber or not. It also gives me a good feel for how hard I'm going to have to work on that hill. So with that being said, let's see how this hill test on our Propella V4 here, and the 250 watt-hour motor did pretty well. I had an average speed of 10.1 miles per hour, and it took me 1 minute and 47 seconds to get up our hill. I think the motor did really well, especially when you consider how large it is. It isn't the most powerful motor out there, but there are a few more variables to consider with this bike and why it got up the hill, which leads me into the 7-speed drivetrain. That drivetrain is the Shimano 7-speed Altus drivetrain, and I find this thing helps a ton with the hilly area I live in. Because I only have 250 watts of power on this bike, having a granny gear to really help me get up those hills without destroying myself physically is a major pro in my eyes. However, I do know there's the single speed crowd out there, and there are those of you who live in areas without a lot of hills. And for those people, they actually provide a single speed drivetrain version of the Propella V4. Going back to the 7-speed setup though, another reason I really like it is because if the bike completely dies, I can still pedal this bike home with relative ease thanks to that gear range. Which leads me into our next point, the 36 volt, 250 watt-hour battery that I think Propella's done a very good job of visually integrating into the bike. They've done a good job embracing the fact that it's an external battery and designing it in a way that still makes it look good looking on the bike. Honestly, from a distance, this could be a thermos, this could be a giant water bottle, but no, it's our battery pack. So, while this battery might look good, how did it perform? In my opinion, it did pretty well. We like to conduct what we call a range test on our e-bikes, where we see how far the battery can get on maximum assist and minimum assist. So when I rode this bike in maximum assist, pedal assist level 5, I reached 17.1 miles with an average speed of 16.2 before the bike finally died. That's just 3 miles below the manufacturer's claimed range of 20 miles per hour. So I'm willing to bet if you ride in an area with not as many hills, you'll get around that 20 miles. Now on our minimum assist test, we reached 33.51 miles on this bike with an average speed of 10.2. That was pretty solid. However, that was still below the manufacturer's claimed range of 40. However, I do think we live in a little bit hotter and hillier area than most people. So I think Propella is giving an accurate range from that 20 to 40 mile estimated range overall. So with that being said, I think the battery lasts, but I still want to know how it performs in each assistance level. So we're going to conduct what we call the circuit test. Real quick before I get into what the circuit test is, I wanted to talk about the display. So the display is where you're going to actuate all your assistance levels 1 through 5, and it's also where you're going to be able to see what your average speed is, how many miles you've gone, and how much charge life you have left in the battery. Basically, it's like a car speedometer. It's going to show you everything you need to see while you're out riding. So the circuit test is actually a test where we ride in each of those 5 assistance levels around our 1 mile loop and take the average speed from those loops to really distinguish and signify what these pedal assist levels are and how far apart each level is. So on my first test, when I did my circuit test, I pedaled the bike turned completely off, and I had an average speed of 10.1 miles per hour around that circuit test. These circuit tests have 4 turns, a few hills, and overall it's going to have enough terrain that it really levels out with hills, inclines, downhills, turns, everything like that. So in my first pedal assist level, I got 11.4 miles per hour. So 1.2 miles per hour faster than the bike turned completely off. Just a little bit of help from this guy here. After that, pedal assist level 2, I reached 12 miles per hour. So we're starting to pick up speed here. And then level 3 was 13.8 miles per hour. This is when I really started to feel the power of the bike engage and take over for my pedaling legs. After that, it went 15.3 miles per hour in pedal assist level 4, where it was starting to show its true capability in that 250 watt motor. The bike felt fast rolling and really helped boost me up those hills. Last but not least, pedal assist level 5, where the motor is doing the most, I had an average speed of 17.3 miles per hour around that circuit test, which is only 1.2 miles per hour slower than the bike's top speed overall. Essentially what that means is this bike can hover around its top speed with relative ease, which is all the more better for you commuters out there who want to shorten ETAs and get to work not flustered and with a few minutes to spare. So we know that bike can move decently fast now, but I still have a question about how this bike can stop. So the brakes are Shimano Tourney TX brakes. They're mechanical disc brakes and they're hooked up to 160 millimeter rotors front and rear. Your levers are these Artec brake levers here, which have a very long blade on them, so all hand sizes should be able to pull these just fine. These brakes, from my experience, feel okay, maybe a little underpowered, but we're going to figure that out right now. We've set up a couple cones in a 25-foot distance. We're going to stop 5 times from around top speed, which is 18.5 miles per hour, and give you, the viewer, an average stopping distance it takes to stop the Propella V4 from max speed. Alrighty guys, so I just finished up the brake test. That was 5 different tests, all from the top speed of 18.5 miles per hour on the Propella V4. It took an average distance for me to stop of 13 feet 2 inches, which is really good. I mean, these brakes felt a little underpowered. However, this bike is light enough that they are more than sufficient when it comes to stopping you on time. I was actually very surprised about what my results ended up being. I've kind of predicted that I was going to be closer to 20 feet stopping distance, which would have been a little concerning, but it's clear to me that Propella knows what they're doing with the brakes they're putting on this bike, because they truly do work. So with that being said, these brakes do pass the brake test in my opinion, and I think they probably will for you too. So after a few weeks and about 100 miles on the Propella V4, I feel like I've had enough ride time and experience on this bike to really give you guys a good verdict of what this bike's all about. The first and foremost thing that I really like about this bike is the way it's able to hold its average speed. Whether you're turning a corner into a steep hill or chicaning through a downhill section, the combination of this 630 millimeter bar and the 35 tire makes for a very aggressive Commuter feeling, in the sense that it's ready to get low in those corners and roll fast whether you're going uphill or downhill. So because of that, I found my average speeds up hills and around corners were respectable, despite this bike's top speed only being 18.5. Another aspect that I really liked and appreciated on the V4 was the comfort aspect. Despite this being a fully rigid bike, the contact points such as your saddle here drastically diminished all that vibration from the road that you get over time. And my bum and I both really appreciated that, considering I did a lot of miles on this thing, some of which was in the 100-degree heat of St. George. So thank you to this seat. Came in a lot of handy. And so did the sweep on these handlebars mixed with the positive sweep stem. That kept me a little bit more upright, which ultimately helped my lower back out overall. I also really liked the 7-speed drivetrain on this thing. It really made this bike that much more capable. As you heard me mention earlier, this does come as a single speed for those single speed riders out there, or people who are in a less hilly area. But I really like the 7-speed, and I do think this bike probably works a little bit better with that 250 watt motor with the 7-speed drivetrain. But yeah, handling and comfort as a whole, I'd really say it feels like a very capable commuter bike. It's still a commuter bike, it's not meant for off-road, but because of the slightly wider handlebars, the raked out fork, and slightly wider than average road tires, you're just gonna ride with confidence. And confidence and comfort both attribute an equal to speed, and that's what I really found on this bike, speed. I was always hovering around that top speed of 18.5 miles per hour. And for that, I think they've really nailed down the wattage to weight ratio on the Propella V4. Another nice thing is, as I mentioned earlier, if this bike does die, it's still pedalable. It's only 37, 38 pounds with the way you have it set up. And even with that battery pack completely dead, you're still going to be able to get to your destination and get home without that much of a sweat. So it still rides like a normal bike, which is very much appreciated in weight and handling overall. So with that being said, I think that Propella's done a really good job with their version 4 bike. And there's really only a few things that I'd like to see changed on their version 5. One of which is all internal housing. I want to see this stealthy bike really live up to the stealthy name that I've given it and have some internal cable routing here. These external cables do kind of diminish the looks, however the performance is okay. And other than that, I might like to see even wider tires just for dampening and vibration. However, that's more of a personal preference. I think these tires are just fine. Looking around the rest of the bike here, the only other thing that I'd really want to change is the white chain. It just felt cheap. It got a little crusty when that paint started to wear off, and I don't see this bike's looks being any worse with a normal chain or potentially a blue anodized chain that looks a little higher quality than the white paint on this chain. That's pretty minor. As a whole, for this $1,300 package, I do think you're getting a quality ride. And if you are that big city commuter or someone who wants to rail paved trails fast, the Propella V4 is probably a good bike to consider. So with all of that being said, I do appreciate you guys watching this review. We work really hard to make sure you know the nitty-gritty about these bikes. With that being said, I've written a very detailed written review on the Propella V4, and you can find that written review in our description below. Right next to there, you'll see the subscribe button. Be sure to hit that for future videos and leave a comment letting us know what you thought about the video. We really like to interact with our audience, and we want to hear what you want us to review next. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe as I said for future videos, and I'll see you next time.